Doing nothing sounds simple, almost childish. But in the modern world, doing nothing has become one of the hardest things a person can do. Not because it requires effort, but because it requires resistance. Resistance to noise, resistance to urgency, resistance to the constant pressure to be doing something. We live in a time where movement is mistaken for progress. If you are busy, you are valuable. If you are still, you are wasting time. At least, that's what we're taught. So when you sit quietly, without a screen, without a goal, without a plan, your mind becomes uncomfortable, restless, almost guilty. That discomfort is not random, it's conditioning. Your brain has been trained to associate stillness with danger. Because stillness removes distraction, and distraction is what keeps you from noticing how tired you really are. The art of doing nothing is not laziness. It is awareness without demand. It is sitting with your thoughts without trying to optimize them, without turning them into content or plans or productivity. And this is exactly why it feels so difficult. When you do nothing, your mind doesn't relax immediately. It speeds up. Old thoughts surface. Unfinished conversations return. Questions you've been avoiding ask to be answered. Doing nothing removes the noise that usually keeps these thoughts buried. That's why most people reach for their phone the moment they have nothing to do. Not because they're bored, but because boredom is a doorway. And behind that doorway is the mind, unfiltered. Modern life rarely allows space for this. Every quiet moment is filled. Waiting in line, sitting alone, lying in bed. Always something to scroll, always something to listen to. Stillness has become unfamiliar, and what is unfamiliar often feels unsafe. The ancient world understood something we forgot. Stillness was not empty time. It was where insight appeared. Philosophers sat quietly for hours. Artists stared at nothing. Thinkers walked without direction, not to escape life, but to understand it. Today, doing nothing feels unproductive because productivity has become moral. If you're not improving, you feel like you're failing. So even rest becomes a task, optimized, measured, scheduled. But true stillness cannot be optimized. It has no metrics. The art of doing nothing means allowing a moment to exist without extracting value from it. No lesson, no takeaway, no transformation, just presence. And this is deeply uncomfortable for a mind trained to perform. Notice what happens when you sit quietly, without music, without your phone, without a goal. Your body may feel restless. Your thoughts may jump around. That's not a sign you're bad at stillness. It's a sign you've been overstimulated for a long time. Stillness reveals how noisy the mind has become. And instead of fixing that noise, the art is to observe it, not to calm it, not to judge it, just to see it. This is where clarity begins. Doing nothing also exposes identity. When you stop doing, you're left with being. And many people don't know who they are without tasks, without roles, without output. Stillness asks a quiet question. Who are you when there's nothing to achieve? This is why some people feel uneasy on vacations, or anxious during weekends, or uncomfortable during moments of calm. The mind, used to tension, interprets peace as something missing. The art of doing nothing is not passive. It is intentional non-action. It is choosing not to fill space just because space exists. It is letting the moment breathe. There is a difference between rest and escape. Escape distracts you from yourself. Rest returns you to yourself. Doing nothing, real nothing, does the same. In stillness, thoughts reorganize naturally, not because you force them, but because the mind, when given space, finds its own balance. Ideas surface, emotions settle, perspective widens, not instantly, but quietly. This is why some of your best insights appear in the shower, or on a walk, or late at night. Moments where you're not actively trying to think. You're simply allowing thought. The problem is, we've trained ourselves to fear that space, to fill it immediately, to label it as wasted time. But the art of doing nothing teaches patience with the mind, and patience is a rare skill now. Stillness also reveals discomfort you've been carrying. Uncertainty, doubt, unanswered questions. Doing nothing doesn't create these feelings. It reveals them. And revelation is the first step toward understanding. The goal is not to live in stillness forever. Life requires action, but action without stillness becomes reactive, chaotic, exhausting. Stillness is where intention forms, where clarity sharpens, where action becomes aligned instead of forced. The art of doing nothing is not about withdrawal from life. It's about returning to it with a quieter mind, a clearer sense of direction, and less noise. You don't need hours. You don't need rituals. You don't need techniques. Just moments. Moments where you resist the urge to fill space, to distract, to perform. Sit, breathe, notice, and allow the mind to settle on its own terms. In a world obsessed with movement, stillness becomes power. In a culture addicted to noise, silence becomes intelligence. And in a life constantly demanding action, doing nothing becomes an art. Not because it changes you immediately, but because it reminds you that you were never meant to be constantly occupied. You were meant to be present.